so we're good to go here. Okay, so we finished talking about our friend Pancho Villa. We are on the backside where it says Pancho Villa from Chihuahua in northern Mexico, hero of the poor. We mentioned that Pancho Villa, he actually attacked. I'll be happy to in a second. He attacked this American city, Columbus, New Mexico, killing 8 U.S. soldiers and 15 civilians. Now, Pancho Villa became so popular because of these things that he did. Even Americans wanted to join Pancho Villa's army because he was perceived as a guy not afraid to even back down against the United States of America. In places like El Paso, we'll see recruitment posters like this one. I want you, gringo, to join the Mexican Revolution. And some white Americans said, sign me up. I mean, this guy is willing to take on the most powerful country on the planet. Well, no, because like on this political cartoon, Uncle Sam represents the entire United States. And remember, Pancho Villa was only popular in northern Mexico. He was popular in the part of Mexico that he was in. And the U.S. was upset. Here on this cartoon, Uncle Sam hopping the border to find Pancho Villa. He's depicted as barefoot, almost like a just a pet, a hoodlum, a pet, someone that shouldn't be a hard time capturing. But it says that on the handout, there's something called the Punitive Expedition. The U.S. under General Pershing invaded Mexico to find Villa. That is what we wanted to do. We wanted to invade Mexico. How dare this guy cross the border, kill Americans, rob a bank? We invaded Mexico to find Villa. And it should have gone well. In fact, on this picture, we actually, for the very first time, used aircraft to scan the Chihuahua Desert to find this hoodlum, this troublemaker. But unfortunately for the U.S., the last blank after it says we went to find Villa, we'll write down that we failed. We didn't find Pancho Villa. He was not to be found. And this only made him even more popular with the people. So it says on the handout, these two guys, Pancho Villa and Zapata, they were only local leaders. Here they are together, Pancho Villa on the left, Zapata on the right. They were never like a figure that all Mexicans rallied around. Pancho Villa on the left, popular in the north. Emilio Zapata on the south, on the right, popular in the south. They were only local leaders, and they could not unify most of Mexico. The real power in Mexico would not be held by the Pancho Villas and the Emilio Zapatas, these Robin Hood-like characters. Sadly, for some, the real power was in politicians in suits and ties in the major cities. And there's a political party that actually wins control, and they're called the Constitutionalists. It says on your handout that they held the major cities and won. So these guys, though they were popular, they don't have the armies that can control cities. They control the countryside, and that's not going to cut it in this Mexican Revolution. It says on the handout that Zapata was killed in 1919. It says on the handout, Zapata was killed in 1919, and Pancho Villa killed in 1923. And so these Robin Hood characters, these guys who are saying the rich land-owning Mexicans are the problem, that we're going to fight for the poor, we're going to stand up to the U.S., these guys are killed. Below that, there are some serious consequences for the Mexican Revolution coming to an end, because all kinds of people fought in the Mexican Revolution. There was women who famously fought in the Mexican Revolution. And so this is a war that encompassed many different people in the Mexican Revolution. We'll write down in total, where it says death toll, we'll write down 2 million. That's how many Mexicans died, killing Mexicans in the Mexican Revolution. It was terrible. And what do we get out of 2 million dead? Well, on the handout, there was some agreement to give some land, you'll write down, to the poor. which is good. Like one of the issues that Pancho Villa and Emilio Zapata had raised was that the poor were getting left out. The poor were not getting, representation. And we also see an agreement to have one term limit. So instead of having people like Porfirio Diaz having his, what was it, 6 terms in office, these are kind of things that are supposed to help bring us a little bit closer to democracy. Sadly, though, just like the French Revolution, the revolution in Mexico continues to get crazy. You might remember, we started off with President Diaz, who was challenged by Madero, who was assassinated by Huerta, who was replaced by Obregón and Carranza. And now it says on the handout, Carranza forced out Obregón. So this is just like new leader every couple of years. It's crazy. And then the last guy we need to talk about is Gaiez. He was elected Mexican president in 24 to 28, and he decided that the number one threat to Mexican people was an institution that has been running schools, an institution that indoctrinates what people believe. What institution is that institution in Latin America? Who runs the schools? No.
The churches?
The Catholic Church. Absolutely right. He wanted to eliminate the power of the Catholic Church. Gaiez felt, sure, rich people can be a problem. Gaiez felt, sure, landowners can be discriminatory. But you know what the real problem is? The Catholic Church. They control the schools. They control the thinking. They control so much. We need to eliminate the power of the Catholic Church. And we'll write down they pushed an almost atheist goal. This should actually remind you again of the French Revolution, because you might remember the French Revolution, they shut down churches. They changed street names. They took down crosses. They did all these sorts of things. So there's a similarity that is there. Finally, let's look at American intervention in the Caribbean and Central America. So when we look at our map, that is so. Yeah, so real quickly, this is Latin American culture: white people, mestizos, mulattoes, native, and Africans. So when we do a look at Mexican society, the majority are the the people in power are the white people in charge of Mexico. There's this broad group in 1821 of mestizos, and then indigenous people below that. When you look at like famous Mexicans, they take their DNA. This guy is a chef. I forget his name. Do you know this guy's name? He's like on TV competition shows. Like I think he was on, like those types of shows. He's on. That guy's it. So he's on cooking contest shows all the time. So when they did his DNA, he is, I don't know if you can see it, 66% white. If I would look at him, I'm like, oh, I'm sure you're like majority not white. 66% white, 24% Native American. Does that mean that Mexican people are darker? I mean, it just depends. There's a lot of factors that can come up like that. For him, his DNA is 66% white, 24% Native American, and then like 3% black. Ana Navarro, she's a commentator. She's on CNN all the time. She is, I don't know if you can see it, 70% white, 20% Native, and she's actually 4% black. And then I think I'm up next. Let's see, look on. Oh, this guy. I am 55% Native American and something like 55% insignificant, and then something like 25% white or something like that. And then I got some Africa, and I got 2%.
That might be why you like going to Africa.
Yeah, it's there.
Back to the motherland.
Cameron, don't ever say that again.
Hey, diverse.
Is your wife like Irish?
Yeah, Irish. Like the land of the redheads.
Mm-hmm.
So, last section, and then we're going to be done, and we'll turn this in. So, it says American intervention in the Caribbean. So, it turns out we are super interested in the Caribbean, not because we have a deep-seated love for these people, but because they got stuff that we want. And so, we're going to write down on the handout that newly independent governments were corrupt and poor. Newly independent governments, they were corrupt or they were poor. In fact, you might remember when we studied Venezuela, they had 10 different constitutions in 20 years. If you have a different constitution every 2 years, there's problems. If you have a different principal every 2 years at LaPorte High School with a different dress code every 2 years, there's going to be problems. And so that's a challenge that they had. In fact, it says that they were often dependent on foreign aid to pay for construction. You know what? You might want bridges in Mexico. You might want trains in Argentina. I don't have it, so I need to ask the US or Great Britain for a favor. But whoever you owe money to, they can kind of tell you what to do. Because what are you going to say? No? Oh, by the way, I owe you millions of dollars, and I'm going to tell you no? That doesn't make sense. It says, it would be like if someone picked you up Taco Bell and you didn't pay them, even though there was the implied sense that, you know what? They're going to pay for that delivery. If you call them on that later, what are they going to tell you? Are they going to actually say, well, no, because they know that they owe you? It says on the handout that Western powers will write down invaded when they feared lack of repayment. That if there was someone that didn't pay you for a service, they said, you know what, we might actually invade you to get what we deserve.
What are you going to invade from?
It says on the handout that we, the United States, we argue for something called the Plat Amendment, where we in the US say that we have the right to invade in Latin America, that we give ourselves permission to invade anyone we want to invade. In fact, we say it's actually good that we're invading. I'm not being bad for invading Mexico. We are actually bringing stability, and you'll write down construction. So it might sound bad that, oh, the US is invading another Latin American country. Actually, I'm doing them a favor because they were chaos until I sent my soldiers in. Nothing was getting done until I sent my invading army in. In fact, just to give you an example of places we invaded, we'll write down Cuba was invaded from 1906 to 1909. We invaded again in 1912, and then we invaded a third time in 1917. Not just Cuba, but we also invaded the DR, the Dominican Republic, in 1904 to 1907, and then we send troops again in 1960. It sounds like we're an empire. If we are literally invading all the neighbors every other year to get what we want, that's the kind of stuff that empires do. We don't want Nicaragua and Honduras to feel left out, so we invaded them in 1912. We also rounded up by invading Haiti in 1915. But the most important place that we invade is Panama. Now, what is it that we wanted to build in Panama?
I don't know, but there's a
You should know.
Panama Bridge.
The canal?
The famous Panama Bridge.
Canal.
Everyone talks about the
Canal.
Panama Bridge.
Panama Canal.
Okay, there's a canal. Because it turns out, listen, it turns out if you don't have a canal through Panama, if you want to sail from New York to LA, you actually have to sail all the way around South America. And the United States says, you know what? I'm just too tired. I can't even walk up the stairs of B building, much less go all the way around South America. So we decide to cut through Panama, but there's a problem. Panama is actually owned by Colombia. And we call up Colombia and say, hey, Colombia, is it cool if we dig a canal in Panama? And Colombia says no.
No.
So we could either honor and respect Colombia,
My country.
or Plan B. Plan B is we go to Panama and we show up with a lot of guns, a lot of money, and we tell all the local people, who here has wanted to rebel from Colombia? And they're like, well, I mean, we're kind of we're okay being just here, but it's fine. And we give guns and we give money to the Panamanians, and they become an independent country. And now we tell them, hey, remember how we gave you guns and money? You're going to let us build that canal, right? And they're like, yeah, I guess so. That's right. We'll write down Panama. We sponsored a Panamanian rebellion in Colombia so they could build and own the Panama Canal. That's the only reason we sent guns and we sent money. We wanted something. Colombia's told us no. We're like, okay, we'll just like cause a rebellion and break off a chunk of your country. We actually, on the handout, owned the Panama Canal from 1903 all the way to 1979. If you were born in the Panama Canal Zone, you're a U.S. citizen. There's a man, I don't know if you remember this. What was the old guy who ran against Barack Obama the first time? You know that guy's name? There's a guy named John McCain. He was born in Panama. You're supposed to be a U.S. citizen to run for president, but because John McCain was born in Panama, back when we owned it, he was a U.S. citizen. We had to give Panama back to the Panamanians in 1979.
Say I was born there in 1970.
Then you were a U.S. citizen if you were born in that
But
zone.
what if I stayed there until like 2000?
That's fine. Doesn't matter. You don't lose your citizenship. All right, we're done. We are going to turn this in. There's homework tonight. Make sure you take a look at that. It's actually a take-home quiz for the material we've been talking about.